What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming back at you another AMA Ask Me Anything episode. This one's all about when you have body fat to lose, but you're starting your caloric decrease at too low of an intake. And this question is brought to us from Josh Morris. But before we do that, let's roll the intro. All right, so Josh asks, hopefully this isn't too long. I'm currently at 27% body fat, been doing carnivore for a month, and haven't lost any weight, but I have seen some body composition changes in the mirror because I'm also working out regularly. Kudos to you there, brother. I just came across you and bought your book, and I don't think I'm eating enough calories, getting about 2,000 calories a day, and based on your phase 1 calculations, I should be eating about 3,100 calories. Your book mentions it's a starting point, but what do you do with that? Do you see your trend for a week and then adjust? Also, do you have a suggestion on the best way to meal plan? I like to keep things simple. Was using Prospre, not sure, maybe it's a meal prep company, but they can't meal plan high-fat diets for some reason. If you use my question, I will take whatever is your favorite flavor keto brick. All right, great question, Josh. A lot of people that have a higher body fat percentage, which 27% is certainly on the higher end. As a reference, when I'm at more of a maintenance intake or a building phase, I tend to level off at around 15% body fat. 12, 15, 16% body fat for a guy is a pretty good, maintenance / building range. Building range because you don't really want to just maintain. 27 is a little bit on the high end of the spectrum there, so I would recommend getting that body fat down. However, a lot of people that have body fat to lose think they automatically need to drop calories. They'll do some generic online calculator, see that it recommends them at like 2,000 calories, which is like what you see on the back of food labels as a standard caloric intake, and people just go for that. You got to remember that the body fat that you're carrying around now coming with that body fat that's factored into what your body needs to maintain its current homeostatic load. So like at 27% body fat, you are going to have a higher maintenance intake of calories than if you were at 10% body fat. So if you automatically start at 2,000 calories, you are drastically shaving off the caloric runway you have to work from. You kind of want to exercise a minimum viable dose approach when it comes to dropping calories because you don't want to cut out more than is necessary, especially in the beginning, because then your body's just going to plateau. It's not going to be sustainable for you. You're going to feel miserable. Your strength will decline. You'll lose lean mass. It's just a cascade of negative events. So what I would recommend doing is, as the book suggests, as my content suggests, figure out what your maintenance intake is at your 27% body fat, which it probably is closer to that 3,000 mark than that 2,000 mark, especially with you now weight training, and then start from that higher intake. That's going to give you more caloric runway, and it's going to ensure that you don't shave off any more lean mass than necessary. Because if you start training as you have recently, that's a very new stimulus for your body. Your body's going to be more hyper aware of that new stimulus and more responsive to it than had you been training for years and years and years and have a lot of muscle maturity. So capitalize on that. The last thing you want to do is drastically cut your calories and your body's potential to build lean tissue going into a cut. Make the most of that. Start with a higher intake and then gradually chip away from there. Start at the 3,100 calories. Figure out how your body responds to that intake. You may have to stay there for a few weeks, see what your body's weight does, see what your body composition does, and then from there, each week, shave off a little bit, 50 calories, maybe 75 calories, and just gradually taper from there. That's going to be more sustainable. It will ensure that you can capitalize on any lean muscle building potential you have with you now just starting weight training, and it's going to ensure that your metabolism stays as upregulated as it can for as long as it can. When it comes to meal prep, I'm generally not a fan of these meal prep companies because you never know the quality of the food they're putting in there. You don't know what kind of seasonings they're using more often than not. You don't know if they're as accurate as they claim to be. There's like a 20% amnesty on nutrition labels, so they may very well not be as accurate as they claim to be. Plus, it just adds a variable that you don't have control over into the equation, especially if they're not catering to your macronutrient needs. And I change macros every single week to keep applying a little bit of pressure to that cut or that building phase So you want to be able to have that control. In order to streamline my meal prep, what I do is I prep my macros once for the week because they stay the same throughout the course of a week. And then I meal prep all my foods that hit that week's macros, and I eat the same thing every single week. And I keep it simple. Ground beef and eggs and a keto brick are typically the base foundation of my nutrition. And then from there, depending on the macros, I can add some egg whites, subtract an egg, subtract ground beef, swap it from 80-20 ground beef to 85-15, add a tablespoon of heavy cream in my coffee, subtract that. Just little minor tweaks like that to make it more sustainable. But if you have your foods prepped and ready to go for the week, as long as your macros are set, then you take that guesswork out of the equation. There's less decision fatigue involved in grabbing the meal, going, and knowing that you're nailing your numbers. It's much more challenging to retroactively eat foods, then go back and try and track it and figure out what you ate, especially if you're eating out at a restaurant. It just takes a lot of fun out of it because, yes, you have more variety, but you're also throwing in a ton of variables that you don't know how your body's going to respond to. You may go out to eat one day, make that try and work within your macros, 2 days later be feeling poorly and not know that it was a result of those foods that you had out when you were out to eat at a restaurant. So I recommend, if you're really wanting to get things dialed in, to just tighten things up and control for as many variables as possible. Hopefully that answers your question. Appreciate the question. You put chocolate peanut butter cup, but then you said whatever is your favorite brick. They're all my favorite, brother. I have not had a chance to try the butter maple pecan because that hasn't been worked into my macros yet in this prep. So tell you what, I'm going to send you some butter maple pecan. That's our seasonal flavor. You can eat them for me, and I'll vicariously live through you because they're delicious. So appreciate the question again. Thank y'all for tuning in. For anybody that does not know how these AMA videos work, if you submit me a well-thought-out question via the link in the description below and I use your question in an AMA video, I will send you some free keto bricks with a flavor of your choosing. Thank y'all again. Talk to you next time.